So for submission, I think this is probably like you're laying in some lights. Um, you feel like you've gotten to a place, where, maybe you're not sure which way to go. Offhand, I can just tell you that one of the first things that stood out for me was like I wasn't. It was difficult for me to get a clear read of the characters, and I think that that's kind of one of the first things you should always be like aiming for. Like whatever your um, point of view is. But before I move on, I want to say that I wasn't able to actually see your reference. So whatever your image you're posting, like .pur, I'm not sure even what format that is. So I wasn't able to get it. So if you're watching this, just try to submit like like a normal PNG or JPEG, because I didn't have anything that even opened that. So yeah, there was just like a lack of focus on the characters where I think we're supposed to be, really looking at. And, I didn't really know what you were going for, so I just opened up that's not it. I just opened up a Safari and I just looked up like bright window coffee because I just wanted to see how, maybe some other photographers and, it's like, people who are making content would show this kind of image. And one of the things stood out is that, the windows are always kind of like what's outside is never in focus, or like, we can't really clearly see it. Either it's blown out or, it's fogged out or something like that. And the inside is always kind of like, I mean, in this case, you can do any kind of color scheme you want, but a lot of these were like white light coming in to, signify like how nice coffee is. But anyway, the big indicator, like something like this to me was just, again, like the window is a distraction. And the more you focus on like what's outside, the more you're going to lose what's inside. And so when I'm looking at your work, one of the first things I see is that you have like these big green shapes out here. You have a really like bright, like white building. That normally wouldn't be a problem, but when the contrast levels between like the next thing are this high, I think it really like takes your eye, away from like where you're supposed to be looking. So remember, like the largest amount of contrast. The largest amount of contrast should always be closest to camera, and then as you step further from camera, like bit by bit, you're increasing the atmosphere between yourself and that object. And so it's a general rule of thumb, and you will break it on some shots, but generally start breaking your shots out that way, where like the thing that's further out has the most amount of like atmosphere and like a little less contrast, and the things in the foreground should have like your your darkest blacks and things like that. So let's just take a little pass at this, and the first thing I'm going to do is kind of try to solve the issue of your exterior, and I'm just going to do it with some quick rotoing. If you've seen like some of the other videos, I feel like I've gone over this like this similar issue a few times, and it's not to say that I just think it's like a common mistake that like early lighters tend to do with windows, or with like shots with like high detail, and like there's it's like one of those problems you have to solve early on in order to like start with confidence and know what you're doing, and know how you're going to build your scene up. So I'm not saying that to like discourage you or or say that you should have been, you know, like watching all the other videos or anything like that. You know, it's just something like the more you light, I think the more you'll actually see this kind of stuff. And should any one of you decide to teach one day, you know, I think you'll actually see some of this too. Okay, so we have like our quick rotos here, and you know, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try, if I can, to I want to like pull some of that like saturation out of the window. So that was like my first thing. And then I'm going to also maybe like try to takes a little bit of contrast out of there. And then I'm also going to try to like build this out. Let me see if I can do it in a different way. So what I'm trying to do here is to increase values. You know, again, this is not looking right now. But what I'm trying to do is increase values, like, so that you don't have like these big like blocks of contrast behind them. You know, that will always be like your big enemy when you're like setting up shots. And then the thing is, like, if you just gain your shots, you know, like this, especially if you're in P3, you're gonna see like a lot of weird stuff. You know, you're just going to increase your brightest parts, and then your darkest parts won't go anywhere. But if you have like if you're rendering out in 32-bit or 16-bit, you know, you should have the data there to actually expose this up and like deal with it in a good way. But like if this is just an image back here, I don't think that won't really be possible. So anyway, you know, you kind of bring it to this level here. I would also throw in a little bit of blur because the detail here is so sharp compared to everything else. So if you just look over here, like, we're getting this like, you know, really, really sharp thing. And I think like the blur will, you know, it's like you're not going to look outside. And then what I'll do is I'll take that same alpha and I'm going to turn it into like an RGBA, and then I'll blur this, and then I'll just merge it pretty much over your window here, and I'll set it to screen, and I'm just going to bring it down a little bit. So, you know, in these cases now, like, maybe you want to, you know, adjust this a certain way, you know, like it is blown out. It is like, you know, it's not correct what I'm doing, but I'm trying to give you an idea of like how you can set up your like exterior so that you're kind of focusing on your interior. And you might say to me like, well, this is really like distracting. And I would agree. And I just think it's a problem inherent with like using a texture for your background here. Like, it will never really look correct, you know, like it's just one of those things, like, you can't light it, you can't like match the lighting coming from the outside. Sometimes I think it's almost better if like this is just a wall or something, you know, and you practice like a different type of lighting. I don't know the classwork here. I'm just giving you feedback. So if the classwork calls for something like this, then, you know, by all means, like, do it. But I'm just trying to suggest that like sometimes even your choice of image, you know, like this might have been a regular image that someone took. What I would choose instead is like, going back to some of these images, is I would actually just choose an image that's already blown out and stick it back there as your like window image, and then go from there. Because the better like the texture, you know, window that you're placing in here, the less work you'll have to do to it, and then you can just focus on the characters and getting them to read inside there. But anyway, so like if we go back here, Um, so now you're setting up like a bit here, and again, like this is never gonna look like perfect because we're doing, a lot of things in the wrong like color space, but I'm just trying to get there as much as I can value wise. And like these greens, I would like even tone them down separately with a separate roto. But when you do this, now what you can do is throw in, like, invert your alpha, and what you want to do is you just want to like accentuate the light that's coming from the outside by darkening like the inner, like the side of them that's on the inside, like it really depends how you frame this. But if I see a light here, or if I see other lights somewhere, then you could fill their faces a little bit. But because for me the point of this was almost like the window was your main caster, I feel like there should be a little bit more like contrast on these characters, and a little bit more a little darker on their like non-key side, so their shadow side. And I think that will kind of help you. So again, like, this was what you kind of submitted, and like this is where we got it. And I want to reiterate, like, this isn't what I want to see. It's like just an interpretation of, I think, like how the exterior should look. I can't do like a proper exposure here that like gets it right, but you want to like get some reference and get a solid feel for like what that outside's supposed to be looking like. Now, just to like point out some things, like some technical things that I'm seeing. So let's just go back to your image, and we talked mainly about like that light coming out and like what that window would look like, and like how these characters would react to it. But one of the things I want to show is that, like, just by reading your shadows, I can tell like what you're doing. So I can tell that there's a light like in the center here, and that light is kind of casting on the inside portion of these characters. I can tell that that light is actually like streaming this way and also streaming this way, or maybe you have two lights. But really, like, you shouldn't actually like feel that shape, like the direction of your light coming from a big window like this is just like a large source, and it's going to be a soft shadow coming like straight back. You're not going to get like angled shadows unless the sun is hitting it. So if your key was a sunlight, then I would expect all the shadows to go the same way. So I think you need to kind of rethink how you're setting up your lighting here. And what I would do if I was setting up this shot, I would actually, and I'm gonna actually draw here and show you what my setup would look like. And I know everyone likes my drawings, so. Okay. So my drawing would be, I would have like a big rectangular light on the outside of this window coming in. And that, like the big, like, rect light, it would give me soft shadows as a starting point because it's so big, and I can control, like the color. I could even throw a texture on there if I wanted to give like a little bit of different color in a certain place, or like throw a ramp on it. So maybe like this side's cooler and this side's a little warmer. You can do things like that with rect lights. That's really nice. And then if that light's not hitting these characters the way I wanted them to, I would actually then go in and add like a hair light, a backlight. So like I would maybe throw in like a second rect that was just on this character, and then another one here that was just on this character, just to give them like some kicks that you seem to have. And then like if I felt like the inside of them wasn't reading, I'd stick, potentially another light there, as needed. But I would start from a basic light, and what that would do, like what having this like main key do, is that it would get my shadows to all be coming from the same direction. It would make them feel like they were, coming from that big open window, and the audience, whoever your viewer is, would just immediately like snap to that idea that, hey, like this light is coming from the window. But like right now, when I look at this, I can tell immediately like that it's not, that something's wrong. You never really get cross shadows like this unless there's multiple sources. And in those cases, you should be able to feel each source so that each shadow kind of makes sense. So that's kind of what I would do if I were you. I would kind of like reframe my lights and like simplify the read, and then also either find an image that's like already overexposed, or like take a picture of the outside. If you have to use the texture, like take a picture of the outside, with like good fidelity, and then just go into Photoshop or Lightroom and or even Nuke, and just expose that image up and see what happens, because there's some hyper detail here that just doesn't work for you. You want to focus on these characters. You don't want to focus on like colors that don't appear anywhere else that are really eye-catching. So the red, the green, this like super saturated yellow here, like all those need to be either as close to white as possible, or they need to be, or they need to just be like different colors, because as something gets brighter, it will really tend to go white. And that's kind of an indicator that, things are working correctly. If I do this, you'll see that, this thing just gets super saturated. So again, like I can't really do this, not with this image. But you could, if you were using like a photo that you took, even on your iPhone, I think you can kind of take a picture like that. Just take it, like increase the exposure, and I think you'll be there. So, yeah, I think you have some like good steps now moving forward. So we'll go to the next image. This one was by, I'm scrolling up, Abhishek, and I'm sorry if I'm saying your name wrong. So this was what you submitted. I think you also said that you have like an issue here with the black line. I actually kind of see it all through like your render here. It actually, to me, this looks like you're doing a lot, like maybe you're doing a lot in comp, and you're not pre-multing correctly. So I think you just need to check all your grades. So if you have like a grade here, there's two ways you can do it. You can actually check this and I don't have a mask attached, so it won't, or like I'm not really doing anything, but you can change this to like pre-mult by the alpha. So it will unpre-mult and then pre-mult. And if you guys haven't done that yet, I'll talk about it in the end. But it could potentially, like if you have a lot of grades, like back to back to back to back to back, you can actually get like weird results. If it's coming straight out of the render, I'm not sure. Like I would just like stick an erode in there and erode it by like a pixel or two and see if that helps. Because like no one really knows where this ends. And if you're having just a lot of a really hard time with your render, that's kind of where I would start. Okay, so this is your reference. I actually really I think this is a really cool image. Let me start by saying like what kind of defines this reference for me, and then I'll go back to your image and we'll talk about like where some differences are. So the one thing that I'm seeing a lot here is this color, this like cyan, and how it kind of mimics the color that's actually, reflected in the darkness or the shadow side of this snow. So the sky color and the snow color are sort of similar, right? It's like this is brighter, but the tone is kind of the same. And then the other thing I see is like these extremely warm sun hits, where like where the sun is hitting and these guys are peaked. Not only is the sun really warm, but the shadows are like a warm purple, and there's like the Terminator line between the shadows and the shadow and the key are kind of like are also have their own level of saturation. So you can kind of see it like right here where it's like sunlight, shadow, and then this like in between like beauty, shadow. So those would be the three things that I would look for like a successful like reference to practice image. So let's go back to your image here. And immediately a few things stick out to me. One is that this snow here looks very different from the rest of your snow. So this is very purple, whereas this one is, kind of less so. It's not as like saturated or dark. The shadows back here are kind of matching like the sky, and same thing here. I feel like I'm seeing that color in here, but the shadows in this center area don't. So, and here too. So I'm actually seeing 4 different colors in your shadows. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I think you need to unify them in a way that works for your image and gets you closer to your reference. So your reference has like a very unified look, meaning that the sky and the ground, the ground shadows that the snow is under, meaning like not the mountains, share a very similar hue. So the first thing I would do is I would go in, I would take like a grade, and I would go in here and make sure that my shadows are matching. Sorry, anytime you hear me get quiet, it's because like my cat's looking to jump up on my table. So I would try to kind of match that hue with your sky, and right away you see like it's hard because you have this piece here, but you want to like make sure that you provide like a unified look, and I get the sense that you have like a few different light setups here. You have like one, maybe another one here, like it like something's going on where much of sorry, where like much of your background and your foreground just has like different shadow temperatures. So that's kind of like my first thing that I would do. The second thing that I would do is, if I'm looking at just your base image, I can see like that warmth in your key, and I see it like here too. But one of the things that really strikes me about like the mountain key here and like some of the key here is that like it's just on the verge between like, in some cases it's like just on the verge between being blown out and being like okay, and I think you need to like play that a little bit more, so here I feel like this sunlight here is really blown out. So I would bring it back a tad, and then I would warm it up a little bit too. So I'm just gonna do like just a little bit of this. So if I get another grade, another roto. Okay, so So yeah, to my eye, whoops, to my eye, this is like a little bit too blown out. So I'm gonna, whoops, wait a second, sorry. Did I not close it? Sorry. Okay. So to my eye, I see it that it's like a little blown out, and then I think it needs a little bit more warmth. You know, so something like that. Because when I go back and forth, you know, I'm looking for that, like, that warm, and that went too much. I'm looking for that warm, like, you know, hit that also goes to like purple on the verticals. So anything that you see that's vertical in this shot, you know, like out here, is kind of purpley. And then anything that you see that's like horizontal and flat should be like this blue. You know, it's getting that top lighting, and this part of the world is getting lighting from the other side, you know, the screen right, off-screen side skylight, which might be darker because the sun's rising. So just looking at like these two things and the sky that you have here, you know, I feel like, and again, I can't really darken this stuff. Like, it just darkens unilaterally. So it's not gonna like maintain. You're gonna have to do this in lighting, you know. But like for me, it's like it gets a little closer, and then what you want to do is decide then if you want if you want to follow this, you know, you're gonna have to figure out a way to then also introduce some like color here that might be like that purple, so that it mixes with your white, and gets you that like that warm in between color. That's like a really difficult thing to do, and like big studios spend a lot of development time just trying to get like the Terminator to like be beautiful and colorful. To take like a quick step off of this, I just want to talk about like you guys selecting colors and how you find the right color. So if you think about it logically, if you have like a slightly blue sky and then you have a slightly warm key, when those two mix together, you get white. Okay. It's like you're building up color, and they kind of cancel each other out, you know. It's not technically true. If someone hears me saying this who's like a colorist, they're going to kill me. But you know, you get to this point where it's white, and then you have this battle between how warm is your key and how cool is your light, in order to determine like what your final value is going to be. So like right here, if you have like a warm key and a sort of purplish, more purple like fill, you know, you'll get a different result than if your key was kind of cooler or more neutral and your sky was really blue. You'll see that like in those cases you end up with like a really blue sunlight, you know, like the blue will kind of like eke it over, you know, towards itself. So when you're selecting your lights for exterior stuff, just make sure that you understand that balance between the two. It will determine like a lot of your overall look. So yeah, like for me, if I just tell you some quick notes, I'd say you have to find a way to unify your like fills, like your shadows. So like this area should be, you know, blue, and if it's reflecting this light here, you know, or like whatever light's on top, you know, it should feel that way. Same thing with like this area here. Like this and this aren't so far apart that they should get this kind of different um, like look. But something like a flat side of a building will only ever see like one side of the sky. So if that side of the sky is really purple, you'll feel it be more purple. Um, Same thing with your like mountains, you know, like if this is a big mountain, this side of the mountain will really only get, you know, fill from coming from like sorry. So this side of the sky of the mountain will actually only get light pretty much from like, you know, this like half of the dome, right? So imagine there's a dome there and it's cut like completely in half. That's the side that's gonna like mostly give this color its this like side of the mountain its definition. And then the other thing I was gonna say is like you need some like atmosphere in here so to like give us a sense of scale. Right now, like this mountain here feels as close as this building. There's no difference between the two. So if you look here, like, you know, this area here and this area here feel very different in terms of their like contrast levels and like, you know, how much atmosphere is between you and them. So just make sure that you include that because it will be a big deal once you're getting everything together. But I think it's a good start, and you know, I think most of your work is there. You just need to like adjust your colors to like be like to work well together, because like when I look at this one, color is the first thing that comes to mind, you know, like it just like pops out at me with these like really nicely saturated colors, and they're all unified in a way, you know. So you need to get that feeling in there if this is your reference. Moving on, I wanted to just talk about this one a little bit. So let's see. All right, Holly. So it says, got rid of the gamma notes of the color levels in the scene were more even. Turn down the sunlight on the characters a tad. Decrease the level of light coming from the game console. Raise the fill light on the characters. Put the light cards on the main key light in for the main key light on the characters, so the top and bottom of the shadows would be sharper like an actual car. Lower the intensity of the light on the characters' eyes so they don't look glowing. Okay, so I actually think you did a wonderful job here. I think like this update is really nice, especially on her from like your latest ones. I think the look of like the car, you know, the car look is like totally, I think you nailed all the values, you know. So like if I go to your luminance, like she looks in luminance, she looks perfect to me. And like I think, you know, there's some errors happening that are like holding you back. I think one of the images I captured are showing it. Yeah, so you can see like that white line around her eye, and this one extends further. You can see it here. So I think either she's like penetrating a light or reflecting something really bright. But like if you want this as a showpiece, these technical issues will definitely stick out. And then like this kid here, his eyes are still too bright. I would darken his eyes a little bit more, quite a bit more actually, like especially when he's in like shadow. So like, yeah, you're just getting like almost no definition here. If I go to your like luminance value, you can see like it just looks like a completely flat card. Whereas I think with her, you're managing to get a little bit of shape still in there. So as long as you fix that like weird issue with the eyes, I think her eyes are okay. His need to come down a little bit. Yeah, so I think like everything you've done here is really nice. There's some things I'd like you to play with, just to see how like they work out for you. And actually, I'd like for the class to also see how this is playing. This is important. All right, so yeah, good work. I think most things are working. There are just some things that catch my eye, and so here you can see like there's some kind of like card or roto or something like that either passing through. It seems like there's something like intersecting the car. Definitely like that needs to like not be there. You shouldn't see stuff like this. Any card that you're placing should be outside and should just cast like a natural shadow. There should be like no need to like do weird like tricks like this. And I'm not sure like what it is exactly. I really can't put my finger on like what's happening here because it looks pixelated like it's a model or some kind of like card, but I'm not sure why it's building this way. So that's like the first thing, is just that I think that those like things need to be solved, and like the shadows need to feel a little bit more like real. The other thing is I feel like your exterior it's like working for me, but it also feels gamma-y, which means like I think you just took your gamma and increased it. And like that's why like this dark area here feels the way it does. I'm not sure. This is just like how I feel when I'm looking at it. So I think maybe it might be worthwhile to see if like maybe you can just like expose your lights that are out there higher instead. Again, like I'm not sure. And if you're here, let me see. Oh, Holly, you're not here, but yeah, I would definitely ask you if you were here, like how you were doing this, and like please contact me tomorrow and we can chat about it, like how you're achieving that look out there. Yeah, and then the other thing that I was gonna say is I'm still feeling like this light is a little too bright on the kid. I'm not sure how I would play it to like, because it casts a light on him that almost looks like he, just shaved, like he's got like a sunblock, like he didn't have sunblock down here and then he got a tan, like it's just like has like a weird feeling to it. I think it's a little bit more distracting than anything. And then I'm trying to feel like, okay, so I think the other thing you can do to help you is to darken the bottom of the car. So this top part of the car is actually like getting light coming in and bouncing upwards. So generally that part of the car, especially if it's white like this, can be a little bright. But the bottom part of the car, like the sides of the door here, this part, like the bottom of this like seat, especially the vertical side, I feel like there needs to be a ramp that goes like bright, like bright like you have it here, just to have it a little darker on the bottom, really soft, just so that you can feel a darkness here and what effect that will have. And let's, instead of this, we'll go back to Nuke, and I'll show you like what effect that will actually have on your scene. So if I just, I'm gonna make a quick roto, just gonna go all the way across here. And then you want to make sure that it's like really, really soft. Now it shouldn't be on your characters much, and I'll get to what I mean about that soon. So here's it with that, and then here's without. And again, like even though I'm going over the character, I still feel like it's feeling pretty natural, like that the bottom half of your character should just go darker. So I think like the entire card, this like section here going down should just like feel a little bit darker, even this side of the wall. It's just like overall like really filly on the inside. I buy it on the top, but I just don't buy it in like the crevices, like on the sides, on the back seat, you know, like on this side of the wall. Like that stuff should just come down as far down as you can get it where it still looks natural. Like here I took it down, if you look at my molt, I took it down like, you know, 75% pretty much. But it's really soft, you know, and all it's doing is it's helping to lift your vision from this like bright bottom to the center where your actual character acting is. So yeah, I think like that can help you out a lot. And then the kid here, I'm still feeling, you know, even though the sunlight's hitting her here, I'm still feeling this like bright warm light from here, and that kind of gets me to my next point. You might want to think about converting some of your colors to be like two-toned, meaning like you have a light here that's coming in, that's warm, that's the sun. The sun's bouncing in, so she has like kind of like a warm fill, especially because the inside of the car is warm. But from the other side of the window, the side that the sun isn't coming in from, it's all going to be skylight that's coming in. And that skylight should actually feel cooler. So the next thing I'll do is I'm just going to, same thing I did yesterday, I'm going to grab a ramp. Oh, not there. And on this ramp, I'm going to first kill this. So let's just do something like that. And then we'll use this as a mask, and I'm just going to increase. Now it's going to be tough to do because, you know, I'm affecting everything, and really what you want to do is affect just the influence from like that light. But I just want to give you an idea of like how it looks when, you know, just focus on your character here, right? How it looks when like you're mixing a little bit of blue into your character. You know, I think like she's looking a lot better, and it helps to like, you know, it helps for the read of your sunlight, and it's going to help give you some like color to play with, and it's going to help like just give you that like little bit extra that, you know, shows that like you can add more to the scene. So again, like I did add this roto here, but only look at like how that like bit of blue is affecting her skin. if I wanted that same value on the kid, it would be like, if I stopped the ramp there and I had it coming in there. So see, like, even though I'm doing that here, because he has so much warm light coming in, I can't really even get much in there. So whatever lighting that you have on this kid that's coming in from that side, and I could tell it's coming in because like I kind of see like a shadow. I see like it's hitting that side of his head, like it's hitting the what should be the shadowed side of his head with warm light. That light needs to come down, like way down, and it needs to be like a different like color, like a slight blue. And then when the sun hits the kid, like here, then that will be your warm key, and that will feel natural, like it's coming from the exterior. So, um, yeah. Um, I think you're really close. You're really close. It's just like some color balance and figuring out some issues with like the rendering, but you've managed to get her looking like really really nice. And I think if you were doing this for an animation or like an animator, I think they would really like what you did here. So yeah, I think this has come a long way from where you first started. So keep going, keep working on this. I think this could like really be like really nice. So yeah. And that was a lot of notes to sum up. The outside, figure out if that's like gamma E or actual exposure, like increasing your lights. With her, maybe add some blue. Kick with him too, like lower that left screen light, increase like the blue potentially coming from there, lower the light from the game console, lower the light, find a way to like suck the light out of the bottom of this area here. Um, and yeah, fix the eyes too, like any issues with the eyes where they're getting like clipped in that weird way. I think that will make sure that it doesn't look like you're like rendering through a mistake, and then make sure his eyes are like less bright as well. Okay, moving on. Molly, I see you posted something else. Is that like an updated?
Hey Christo,
Hi.
am I late or am I on time?
Yours is this work?
It's Abhishek.
Is this your work?
No, it's not. No, yeah.
This one? Yeah.
No, 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 no. Snow scene. Snow scene is.
Oh yeah,
I am also working on a snow scene.
yeah. I went over this
Yeah, this one.
a little earlier. Um,
Oh,
yeah. So
okay, okay.
it's
No
it's
problem.
it
I thought I was.
it's recorded. So I'm gonna put it up right after this class.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Um, so Molly, you put up a different image here. Does this look correct to you or no?
Yes, it is. I actually made two versions because my iPhone is showing color differently than my PC.
Mm-hmm.
I see that this one's really purple. I posted another one just while you were giving feedback of one that I was rendering that's darker.
I saw it. Do you want me to? Is that the one that you want to look at?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that has more accurate color.
All right. Here, let me.
Thank you.
I'll download that one now.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, cool. So you were asking some questions, and you can go ahead and like chat about it now if you'd like, or I can read what you wrote.
Oh, okay. It's just I'm just wondering how you would approach darkening the foreground. What I did was I just placed 2 cubes, right? So to act like a mountain, and then that blocked the dome light a little bit. And then I had the other question I had was the second window on the top floor on the side of the house. I added a spotlight behind the window, except it doesn't reflect the window pane, the frame. And I'm wondering if you would go about doing that with a gobo or.
You mean you said the top floor?
Yeah, right there. Yeah,
The one on the right.
that light. Yeah, the light that I have on the roof that's reflecting on the roof. That's a spotlight.
I see
And I
this
just
one here.
yes.
I see. Yeah. Okay. So I'll take those questions first, and then I'll go into the rest of it. I think what you're doing for the dome light is, it's reasonable. You're creating a shadow that would be covering that area. The other thing you can do is set up a dome light for like this back area that reads one way or one color or one brightness, and then link it off on the foreground, and then create another one that you link on the foreground that's either darker or has a different color, depending on how you want to try that.
Oh, I see.
Like you can do that, but the thing about that is, you'll always have a clear difference. Like it'll, like this back one will be purpler and this blue forward will be bluer. So the way you're doing it is more natural, but if you find like that you have a clear separation, like a good way to um, kind of separate it and not have it be noticeable, then by all means, go ahead and um,
Oh,
go ahead and set up 2 different ones. It'll give you like more control.
okay.
Yeah. And then specifically with this stuff, yeah, what happens with these windows is, I think it might be the case, like it could be one of 2 things. One is small lights cast sharp shadows, and so if your light is kind of like, maybe like right here, and it's kind of taking up the whole window, it could just be too big and you're getting like a soft light coming out of there. So if you want like a very specific, like tight, like shape here, you're going to have to make that a very tiny light, and then have that light go through to cast that light out of there. Um, Ultimately, it's kind of up to you. Like if you want to have more control over like the actual shape, then yeah, I would suggest a gobo. Um, but those kind of ideas will that keeping that in mind will help you in the future, like when you want to get a specific type of shadow. Like, do you want a hard shadow coming out of this? Like then you think like a candle, you know. I mean, like, albeit like a very bright candle, right? But it's like,
Yes.
then like, do you want a soft shadow in there? Then you're thinking like more of like, there's a torch in the room, or like there's a big, lamp, or like like a floor lamp or something like that. So just
Yes.
keep that in mind. Yeah. And you can actually, like, when you're rendering, you can see the difference. Like, just take your size of your light and scale it up and down. It will make your lights less bright or more bright depending on which way you go. So you'll have to mess with that to like keep the brightness the same. In some renders, you have like normalization buttons to keep the brightness the same no matter how big it goes. So if you check like normalize, then as you increase the light, it won't get big, it won't get brighter. Um, yeah, but I would just play with that and see like what the differences are, because
Okay.
yeah, it's a big one. Um,
Okay.
yeah, and then as far as like your reference goes, are you looking to create something this clean? Meaning like, there's a very distinct lack of like haze here. It's like it's very crisp, it's dry. There's not a lot of humidity in the air, and in yours
Mhm.
ones here, I feel like there's like this sense
Yeah.
of fog and like billowing snow.
Right. I intended the fog to end at the background, at the mid ground.
Hmm.
Um, I just need to adjust the fog. I didn't intend for it to come so far up.
I see. Okay. Yeah. So that's like one of the notes I would give you like right away is
Okay.
like that will have a huge effect on how you're reading things. In fact, if I
Oh,
if I
I
like
didn't even think of it. Yeah.
if I just take your gamma and I lower your gamma and then I just brighten your image up. Um, so this is like also affecting your colors, right? But you can see like once your darkness comes back, you'll just have like such a different image versus like what you have. And I think that's
Nice.
just because you're essentially taking your fog and you're placing it over your whole scene, and it's kind of like the thing about fog is that it builds, right? It's like everything that's in the front will add to every layer as it goes back. And so your best bet with fog is always to like limit where it goes to and control that so that like it doesn't get out of hand. But just like with us
Yeah.
just with a simple like gamma and gain here, I feel like you've gotten some of your clarity back. um, but like you want to do it right. I wouldn't do this because like I wouldn't do what I'm doing because you'd kind of like you'd rarely get away with it in like a in like a professional environment. So you
Yes.
want to lay it in right, so that it works like on multiple shots. And but I like just looking at it this way, I think like everything you have is looking really nice. Like you've and I can even look at this one and tell you that like you have these like nice little shaping hits here. um, you have like a nice bit of reflectivity on the snow here. Like there are really nice elements to this scene. And I think like you worked out a lot of like interesting things out of this scene. Like even like this stuff that I asked you to do last time, I think is working really nicely. um, so all I feel like all you need to do is like figure out your fog issue, and then you'll be close to something like this. um, the last thing that I was going to say is that I think that this sun hit and this sun hit are looking very different, and they should be the same. Um,
Yeah.
so like look at what's happening up here, because I think like that's kind of a similar look, and then get it so that like it looks like the same source. And I think like the true color is like this, but maybe a little warmer. So if I let's see, no, that doesn't get it. Like if I just I'm just gonna add like I added this is what I did. I just added 1.2 to your reds only. I think like maybe that's where you want it, you know. And maybe if you're willing to play with it, you could actually increase your purples as well. Sorry, your blues to get it a little bit like purpley, because morning light is like a very specific temperature.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I don't have any other feedback for you, because I think once you shave that fog off, it will fix like, and I don't mean even fix, like this could be like a really nice look if you wanted it this way, but it will give you like a completely different feeling, and it might reveal like a different problem for you. But I think like you have a really nice like right now as it stands, it has a really nice base. Once you take that fog off, you're gonna have a really nice image. and then you can kind of go from there doing whatever like little things that you need. But I see like a lot of subtle work here, and I think it's all working. So
Great. Thank you so
yeah,
much. I'll make those changes. Thank you.
yeah. So moving on, we had this reference to 7, and this was by Caro, who said that he couldn't be here. So Caro he talked about the bleach bypass and how he was trying to achieve this, and what he did was, I'm going to show the lit version first. And then here is his like Photoshop. I think it's a Photoshop because it says PS after it, but his like Photoshopped look. I think that, for the most part, it's pretty successful. And I'm just going to look at your Photoshopped work because, you will end up doing some work in comp no matter what, especially to get a look that kind of appears like this bleach bypass. I think you're like getting what's happening. I just think certain things are a little, you can like tweak them a little bit. So the first thing is, and I'm just going to try to, there we go. All right. So I'm just going to go back and forth, and the one that stands out to me is like the hair light here is just like too bright. I think like you really nailed the shaping of the light on his neck and his back, like that to me is working. But I think it's also too bright, and maybe the color is a bit off. So this is kind of like a weird thing, especially when you're going off of live action, is that in live action, you have, everything's controlled, right? But the reflections of items, in the room can sometimes be controlled, and sometimes you just get things either for free or by mistake. I don't like to say that things in film are by mistake, because generally someone's thinking about pretty much everything on the frame. But it's like you can't hide all reflections and all hits from metallic objects. And sometimes you're just going to give away, the magic just in ways that, like most people won't notice. So I see that he has like, this like back rim here, and we're seeing that, on this shirt. It is pretty bright. But due to the fact that it's like, on a tailor, like on a shirt like this, you don't feel it so broadly. So I think like, to me, that's like the one place where I think maybe you had the right idea, but you're going to have to take it and make it more of a rim or a kick and make it softer. And then the other thing is, I see where you're getting this color from. Like, I really do. And I think, I can read it like in here a little bit, but I don't think that it's like, I don't think it's having the effect that you want it to. Like, I would just like neutralize that a little bit. Like, I think it's a little too saturated. And that's the other thing I wanted to talk about. Like, when you're dealing with like live action, everything's going to be more subtle, unless you're looking at like John Wick or, Atomic Blonde or something like that. Many times like the lighting is just really, really subtle, like the colors are, if you look at like gels and things like that, or if you look at like the stops that they choose to like go down or up on certain things, and what you're putting on your lens is like, it's just like super sensitive and really subtle. So for a scene like this, it's all about like the subtlety and like the little bits you can do here and there. So yeah, I would try to like get the feeling of like what's happening here, and not so much the exact placement of the lights. But yeah, so the hair to me is a little too much. brightness or like intensity. Same thing with the back. I would like swing that light to the back. When I actually look at this and I analyze his hair, I do see like some kind of reflection or specularity here, especially on his ear. But it's like, it's kind of like a perfect rim, you know? So, and you have that here, but on the hair, it's like too much. And then if I was going for this kind of like bleach bypass look, you know, you can do a lot in comp. And I know that you're planning on doing stuff like that, but just like a color correct node and then adjusting. Oh, I'm doing it on the wrong one. So a color correct node and then adjusting it, you know, per like level like this, you can get a lot done. So I'm just going to put this here and I'm going to try to, so I'm going to do this and I'm going to try like just having this open to kind of get to some of these values. So sometimes what I like to do is it's not immediately obvious where your range is. So I'll do like a insane gain just to figure that out. And then I could just play with my ranges to like push and pull that, you know, one way or another. So that's about as much of that as I want. And then what I'm going to do is increase this, do a little bit of a desat, and then I'll also give just the slightest bit of color to this. And as you see, like as I'm doing that, you kind of start getting closer to that color. And then now we have like our midtones, so I can like start increasing or decreasing my midtones. And you know, like maybe the midtones are like a little darker. Now you're gonna see that it's like it falls apart because I'm doing it on the whole image. But you know, I was just looking at the shirt, so maybe you want to like just work on the shirt like with a roto, or like you know, like when you're in lighting, you know, you're gonna like work on the shirt, work on the character, you know, because now I think all your lights are in the right place. You just want to kind of work on individual things to make them look right, because here's another like issue is that in real life you have real materials that act in a realistic way to whatever light you're throwing on them. When you have a character like this, you know, all the shaders are the same and they're all going to react the same way, which means that like hue and value are kind of king in that sense. And so you're going to have to work hard to get the values that you want in there. But this is like, you know, I'm being kind of ridiculous now because like this is getting like extremely deep into like figuring out what the color of this is. It's like, yeah, I like the way this is kind of working now, and I feel like I'm getting like closer to this kind of look, but I don't expect any of you guys to go this far. You can do it as an exercise, just for your own sake, just to work on your color matching and things like that. But I would never expect you to like, you know, stick a roto in here and like just do the shirt this way, because it's unrealistic. You're not going to be able to do that in a real shot later on, you know. This color correct node is not made for these kinds of like things, like really minute kind of increases or decrease. I mean, it is, but it's not made to like do one on the shirt and then do one on the, you know, skin and then do another one on the background, you know. It's like try to get as much as you can out of lighting. And then, you know, if I just like A-B your character here with this, I think you're most of the way there. Like you're, you know, like the directionality and everything like that is working. I feel like you matched it as well as you could. I just think like certain things about it, you know, need to be touched up. So my notes with this would be this back color here, desat a little bit, lower the intensity, and like get it a little bit more rimmy. I think that will help you. The hair as well, I would just like lower that. I would lower that to the point that like this is, so look at his like hair value there and then get that to be the same one. Um, the neck value I would also lower just a tad. It's almost competing with like your main key. And the only other thing I would say is that I think your core shadow is a little too dark, like the tiniest bit of dark, too dark. It's like I can see a very distinct fill on his face here. And I think like this part, like look at his nose here. And like look at this part of his like cheek, especially here. I can tell that there's like some kind of like fill in here. So I would just increase the fill right here. And I think if you lowered this light, you'd have the ability to go a little higher on the fill and still make it feel dark. But yeah, for the most part, I think this is really successful. You could probably do like one more iteration and then like just move on. And again, like, I went overboard with this like color correct, but I was just showing like, how minute you can get with stuff, and it's not like, it's not like good. Again, like he doesn't look, because I was just focusing on the shirt, but you can get like kind of minute with this stuff and kind of lose your mind. But it's really not important when you're doing these kinds of like exercises. Yeah. Yeah, and again, like his shirt, because it's white, is going to blow out well before his skin does. So, that's something to think about too. You might be able to like blow out the shirt, but then bring his like skin tone down, because I see a lot of brightness on his skin that's not in this one. So think about that as well. Okay, moving on. Ruby. Yeah, nice update. So Ruby, did you get the Z pass to work?
So I tried the thing that you said to put a plane in the back, and that one kind of worked. But when I applied it, it was kind of like I had to do a couple of them, because in one I had like a whole like halo around him, and I didn't know what was happening. So when I applied that, I got like weird results.
Mm-hmm.
And this one, I kind of did, but it's still like if I go a little bit more intense, I'm still getting like kind of like too sharp of like this is where it stops to blur kind of thing.
This, right?
I don't know. Yeah, so that starts like if you see, you can notice more in the like in the arm, on the shoulder,
Mm-hmm.
her shoulder.
Yep.
Because there's so it starts looking like kind of too much. So I was doing like I tried to do one like without them to maybe like kind of blow up the blur in that section, and then just add another one with them on top. But I didn't get the render on time. So this is like a kind of mild blur with the seed depth. So I don't know if I should go more with the cactus and stuff. But yeah, I'll definitely need to kind of cut them more, because it's kind of weird that they're doing that.
Yeah, no, I have like trouble with this. Like whenever you're gonna push your background really far, it's like you have to like do kind of tricky stuff, because the Z pass is like accurate, but it's also like, it's like per pixel, and sometimes like if I select this pixel here, or like this one, like is this background, or is it your character, and because the answer is like somewhere in between, it's like it's a pixel that defines the border between your character and your background. What ends up happening is the Z pass kind of does this. It starts like blurring these pixels as well. So the fix for it, I mean, there's two fixes. One, you sometimes like people will take and like erode or dilate their like Z passes, and that's not super good. Like it might get you good results, but it could be a little strange as well. The other fix is to render your characters on a separate layer. Run the defocus on your background separately, and then add your characters on top. So it would be like two separate renders, one of the whole set without your characters but with their shadows, and then the second render with your characters, and then you just put them A over B, and then you apply the defocus on the background plate and on your characters separately. So that would kind of fix that issue, and then you could like push like this like the BG cactus more as well. But yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of working. It's like a nice look. It's it's really interesting. The other thing I was gonna say is like, if you're pushing, if you're pushing like a toy kind of scale here, so you might be using like a lens that amplifies that. So I would expect that maybe some of the defocus would be coming in a little closer. That would help you like make them seem a little bit more miniature. So yeah, but I think like all the lighting you've done is really nice actually. Like the rim coming through and hitting her key, and the way the dings are working. If you just ignore this, I think all the ribbons are looking really nice. Yeah, I think you've done a really, really nice job. The only other thing that I would say, like one thing that stuck out to me immediately was that I get the sense that these background cactuses like are a little gray. So I think what might be happening is you're maybe adding some atmosphere back there, like from foreground to background, and that atmosphere is adding like this color, but then you're also hitting them up top with potentially like a white light or something. Like I'm not sure like what the light is that you're hitting from the top, but when it merges, it feels, it ends up somehow feeling a little gray. So all I would suggest is that let's like snag a roto here. This is Roto Land. Okay. All I would suggest is like in the background here. Actually, I shouldn't do that. I know this is not really close, but there we go. Is that you get like the cactus to a color that like has more of this like, this like color that you're doing back here, like this value. I should feel that more like pretty much like on the top as well, so if I kind of A/B it, it just feels like more like even the colors are kind of like more muted. It's like I'm feeling a lot of local color of like whatever that is, but I feel like the further you get, the less of that you get. Um, so something like that, it just like it just has an effect where it sits further back and it feels like it's just in the background. The other thing I was gonna say is like I like these colors. Have you experimented uh, with potentially maybe like some of them being like right now? I feel like they're all very similar colors. Uh, like experiment with like seeing if like they like some of them were warmer. I wonder what that effect would have. You don't like this is just like if I was playing with this shot on my own, I would say like, oh, let me see what it'd look like with like a warm palette back there, or like a slightly warm, like maybe 30% of those dots were like warm, just to see. I don't know what you're doing, so I'm just throwing ideas out there. But I mean, honestly, I think a lot of this is looking really nice. Uh, like I like the way it's all building up. I like the shaping that you're getting on these guys. Again, I would like watch the color. I'm not sure what your color, what color you're using to get these like shaping lights. Um, but you might want to like. I mean, I think they look okay, but what I mean is like if the majority of the colors hitting these guys is like this stuff, are these backlights the same, or are they different? Are they in like some different kind of like they're not getting moonlight, they're getting just some kind of like late skylight or something like that. It's just like stuff that you have to know for yourself. Sometimes you're presenting your work in rounds, and people are going to ask you like, oh, like what did you do, and you have to kind of sell your work, and you have to kind of present it in a way like yeah, I threw in some like bluer lights in the background because I wanted to have like a contrast between the foreground and the background, and I wanted to do that with the use of like warm and cool colors, stuff like that. So everything you do should have like you should know like that you're doing it. I'm not saying that you don't. I'm just saying like you should like make sure, like make a checklist, like, or not an actual checklist, but just in your brain, like, oh, like I'm putting this light here because I really want to hit it with this like warm rim or whatever it is. So, but yeah, and then sorry, I kind of strayed there. The other thing I was gonna say is, did your last version have like more color here, or is this the same?
So it's the same. I just bumped up the right side light.
I see.
So I don't know, it kind of washed it off a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it has a good effect where I'm reading his face a little bit better. So I think it works. It's just something that like stood out to me. Um, but yeah, so that I think I would start there. Like, see about like the fixing your like see about fixing your depth of field. I would, because one of the things that's hard to like look at right now is like because of this, it has like this like negative effect of reading like some kind of diffusion, which it isn't, right? It's just like a technical thing, but it's hard to see like where your actual diffusion levels are. Um, and the other thing that I was going to say is that I think that this light, this pedal here, I think you can hit it a little harder with whatever light. So the light that's hitting her here could be hitting like maybe his hand, like it's out of the shadow, and then hitting the flower a little bit. I know that it is now, but I think like maybe the value could be a little hotter, just so that we feel that. Um, but yeah, this is great work. Um, and I'm just playing around here. So I like messing around with shots. You guys know that? So let's see. So I think you can kind of maybe do like something a little bit like this, where you reintroduce like where you like introduce a little bit of so maybe like maybe the saturation is too high right now, but I think like maybe like on the dress and like in this foreground area, like one of the things I'm liking by like reducing the gamma a little bit is just like the punchiness you get from here. It has like the effect of like making it a little bit more sharp, you know. So you could try something like that too. So all I'm doing is I have a grade where I'm lowering my gamma to like 0.9, and then I'm gaining it back up. So what that does is like, your gamma is going to bring things down. And you don't want it to get dark, so you can actually kind of gain it up a little bit, and it kind of like maintains it maintains like the darkening that you got out of it. And then the color correct, I will either, if the saturation became too high because of the gamma, I will I'll either desat it so that it's not super saturated, or I'll increase the saturation if I feel like it needs a little more. So sometimes that's like just my go-to like little like duo, because it kind of has that effect of shaving some of like the like filliness from things. But that's up to you. If you don't like it, then but I was just playing around and seeing like what different things you can do. But honestly, I think you started this shot 2 weeks ago, Ruby, like putting it together. It's come a long way, and I think it's really nice. One other thing I would do, I think this is kind of important. Right now you have this like horizontal element in your shot right here. I would try to ramp it a little bit, so that like by the time that it gets to this area, that it's kind of like closer in value and hue to the sky. Like imagine that instead of this being a table, this was like a desert, right? You never really like feel the edge of the desert in a way. It kind of just like builds up, and like you get atmo. I think like a little bit more atmo back here would go a long way. So I can actually demonstrate what that would look like. So again, this isn't like super perfect. And again, like if you do like a Z defocus, I think it will kind of do it for you. If you like bring your focus in more, but like it just has like an effect of like not creating a visual like like a hard visual line that draws the eye into your scene, you know. So suddenly I just feel like it's less harsh than this one, you know. But if you have your background separate and you're throwing in like your Z to focus and you still feel like it's, you know, too much, all you really need to do is like you can just um, like grab a roto and like blur the edge or something like that, or you can like throw some Atmo on the table back there until it like feels closer. So there's like a few ways to do it, but yeah, just something so that it doesn't feel like you don't feel that horizontal line. Yeah, so that's it for today. Sorry we went a little long, but we had like a whole bunch of stuff, and I'm